Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Canada's investing billions of dollars into upgrading NORAD, the Continental Early Warning System. The Alberta government announced new help for cancer patients who do not respond well to chemotherapy or radiation. And the Lethbridge Police Watch program received a very special award. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Defense Minister Anita Anand says modernizing North America's aging defense systems will help protect Canadians from emerging threats. Canada will invest $4.9 billion over the next 6 years to upgrade NORAD, the Continental Early Warning System. The announcement comes as Canadian and U.S. military officials have warned that NORAD is badly showing its age.
This plan will deliver modern, state-of-the-art equipment for our Canadian Armed Forces, who put their lives on the line each and every day to ensure the security and the sovereignty of our country. It will create tremendous opportunities for Canadian industry and will ensure that Indigenous-owned businesses benefit from these investments throughout the supply chain.
Anand says the funding is the first of an estimated $40 billion that will be spent over the next 20 years for the upgrades. Ottawa announced that it is banning companies from importing or making plastic bags and takeout containers by the end of this year, selling them by the end of 2023, and from exporting them by the end of 2025.
I'm happy to announce that the Government of Canada has moved forward a comprehensive plan to ban harmful single-use plastics and keep them out of the environment. Today, we are publishing the Single-Use Plastics Prohibition Regulations, which deliver on our commitment to prohibit certain harmful single-use plastic items, the ones we most often find littering our streets and other public spaces. These items include checkout bags, cutlery, hard-to-recycle takeout containers, ring carriers, stir sticks, and straws.
The federal government's easing of travel restrictions took effect on Monday. Passengers no longer need to be fully vaccinated to board a plane or train in Canada, but masks still need to be worn, including at the airport. Ottawa also lifted vaccination requirements for federally regulated workers, allowing airline and airport employees on unpaid leave because of their vaccination status to return to work. Officials say when it comes to re-entering Canada, the ArriveCan mobile app must still be used, and unvaccinated travelers must show proof of a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours or face a fine up to $5,000. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is releasing a report outlining what it says are the dangers of Bill C-11. That's the piece of legislation many feel infringes on free speech online and regulates what you can and cannot see on the internet. Joining us now to discuss this in more detail from Brantford, Ontario, is Jay Goldberg, CTF Ontario Director. Jay, what's your biggest concern about Bill C-11?
The government is planning to regulate user-generated content. So that means they're coming after you, individual users. If you're uploading things to YouTube, if you're posting videos to TikTok, these could be subject to government regulation. The government keeps saying it's not going to be, but the CRTC, which is the government organization that's going to be tasked with overseeing this whole bill, they're saying it is. So that means that user-generated content's fair game, and Canadians got to watch out.
Now, the Trudeau Liberals say they're just trying to protect Canadian content and culture. How do you see it?
Canadian content and culture is thriving. Netflix has made hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. In 2020, the Canadian film and television industry got $6 billion in foreign investment, a record. So Canadian content is doing really well. And they're just trying to say that they're protecting Canadian content as an excuse to try to regulate what we have to say and what we can see online, which is user-generated content and other content like that. So it's really a red herring in this bill.
Now, Jay, the report that your group put together says Bill C-11 may also set a very dangerous precedent for the future. How so?
What Bill C-11 does is it allows a bureaucratic organization to filter what we see online. So the government gets to decide what comes up first in our news feeds and our streaming feeds. And they're saying right now they're just going to do it to promote stuff that's Canadian content, that it's what their intentions are very honorable. But down the line, if we have government bureaucracy that has the power to decide what we see first online, they could easily expand that for other purposes. It might be Canadian content now, but tomorrow it could be to promote social cohesion, as Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino has said. So easily you could imagine mission creep here, and that's the big concern.
So where can we find this report being released by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation? And is it too late to have our voices heard?
You can find more information on the report and the report itself at taxpayer.com. And it's not too late. They haven't had the final vote in the House of Commons. And then it's going to go to the Senate, where the real fight is going to be. The Senate basically killed Bill C-10, which is the predecessor to C-11. And we have to keep up the fight in the Senate to protect our right to free speech and free expression.
Thanks so much, Jay. That was Jay Goldberg, Ontario Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Brantford, Ontario. At least 4 people died and 7 others were injured after Russian fighter jets attacked another city in eastern Ukraine. The most recent offensive was close to some of the fighting in the Donbas region of Ukraine.
Я был дома, слышал взрыв, и пепел, и пыл, столб пыли пошел. Чую крики тут, ужасные крики были. Я прибіг, побачив тільки руїни і трупи, яких виносили на носилках. Не знаю, хто був живий, хто. Я вже не пам'ятаю, хто тут, що тут. Тут було таке, що не доведи, мать Божа.
As the war in Ukraine rages on, the country's agriculture minister says close to 25% of Ukraine's arable cropland has been totally destroyed. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says this has negatively impacted the global food supply chain.
The war in Ukraine has directly affected food supplies, shortages, what countries are getting their supplies from Ukraine, and how this ongoing war, this lack of confidence in there being an end to the war is really contributing to the markets and food supplies and the cost of basic supplies all throughout the world, and not to mention, obviously, gas prices and that connection. But obviously, the war in Ukraine has taken a toll.
Lisa Daftari will also have an update as to if and when Ukrainian President Zelensky and Russian President Putin will have peace talks. She'll have details coming up in the second half of our program. Well, we had a rainfall warning issued by Environment Canada in our region in southwestern Alberta, up to 40 millimeters of rain along with gusty winds. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, how long is the rain expected to last?
Just through this evening, Hal, we are looking at a 60% chance of showers tonight with a risk of a thunderstorm, and then it should be clearing up by midnight, making way for some beautiful weather on a Tuesday. Tuesday, by the way, first official day of summer, so summer should be coming in with sunshine and a beautiful day, high of 22 degrees. I'll get into all those details, though, coming up later on in the show.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. Alberta health officials say they're making progress when it comes to treating cancer patients. Clinical trials for chimeric antigen receptor, or CAR T-cell therapy, are showing good results for patients where chemotherapy and radiation have stopped working. CAR T-cell therapy genetically reprograms a person's immune cells to attack cancer cells in the body. The patient's T-cells are extracted and in a lab are genetically modified and multiplied before being returned to the patient. This therapy is being used to treat children and adults with specific types of leukemia and lymphoma. Health Minister Jason Copping says Alberta is the 3rd province now offering this type of treatment. It is a continuation from a pilot project launched last year.
Government provided $10 million to fund a 3-year pilot project to assess the therapy, and the Foundation provided another $5 million. And once again, thank you very much to the Foundation for all their support. Now, just over a year ago, in April of 2021, we announced that the first patients were receiving the therapy. We're funding 2 different approaches, one using commercially produced CAR T cells and a made in Alberta trial using cells made right here at the U of A.
Copping says treatments will expand next year to Calgary and the Tom Baker Treatment Centre and the Alberta Children's Hospital. Lethbridge police have charged a 17-year-old male in connection with a stabbing over the weekend. LPS say a male was stabbed after confronting a car prowler around 1 o'clock Sunday morning in the Blackfoot Road West area. A 26-year-old man confronted the youth and was stabbed multiple times. Fortunately, the victim survived. The subject fled the area but was apprehended by police a short time later. The weapon used in the assault was also recovered. The 17-year-old male faces charges of assault with a weapon, assault causing bodily harm, mischief, and assaulting a police officer. He cannot be identified because of his age. The teen will appear in court on Wednesday. There's been a lot of discussion surrounding the Trudeau Liberals' new legislation, Bill C-21, or the handgun ban, as some refer to it. The subject of gun violence has come up a lot in Canada recently, following yet another mass shooting in the United States. Alan Friesen is a firearms instructor and past president of the Alberta Fish and Game Association. He says Bill C-21 is an attack on legal gun owners. He says we already have laws making it difficult to own a firearm here in Canada, as opposed to in the United States.
You could buy a gun anywhere, any weekend. You can go to a swap meet and buy a gun in the United States, right? They don't even ask for your piece of ID, right? Here, you have to take a course. You have to take 2 courses, Canadian Firearm Safety Course or Canadian Firearm Restricted Safety Course, in order that you can apply for a license. When you apply for license, you're going to answer questions about your mental health, your financial health, your marital health, or your relationship health, those kind of things. You're going to provide references that are going to check you over. They're going to, of course, going to do a police check. And firearm owners in Canada are the most vetted people in our whole country.
Make sure you catch the full interview with firearms instructor Alan Friesen and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our newscast. A spate of weekend shootings in Toronto over the weekend left 2 people dead and another 9 people injured. Toronto police say even though there were 6 shootings, there's no significant danger to the public.
Toronto is a very safe city, and not only in Canada and North America. We have some of the best homicide and best shooting team investigators. We have a very high solve rate on this. So to your point, the second part of your point, these were different events in different locations. Like I said, I'm not going to comment on certain linkages to certain events, but I don't feel that the general public is in any danger, any significant danger related to these events.
A driver who police say was involved in a chain reaction crash that killed 2 people on Friday now faces impaired driving charges. RCMP say a 20-year-old woman and a 21-year-old man were rear-ended on Highway 21 late Friday, just north of Trochu, Alberta. Their vehicle was pushed into the path of an oncoming semi-truck when the collision occurred. 42-year-old Richard Bell of Elnora, Alberta faces multiple charges, including impaired operation causing death. Police say he remains in custody and will appear in Drumheller Provincial Court on Friday. The Lethbridge Police Services Watch program was recognized last week with the Community Justice Award. It's an honor acknowledging either organizations or individuals who have contributed to community justice work here in the province. The program began in May of 2019, and manager Jeff Cove says to be recognized on the provincial stage feels incredible.
We don't do this for awards or whatnot. The recognition is really nice, but yes, it's the first time that we've been recognized for any type of awards. We just do our work quietly, and we're out there with our volunteers and our team leads doing what we do. So it's a pretty special thing to be recognized by the province and within our own organization, and the support that we've had in the community has been absolutely outstanding.
Currently, the program has about 32 members patrolling the downtown, acting as the eyes and ears of the LPS. Workers are still coping with the devastation after a fire ripped through the Creepy Hollow tourist attraction in Warner, Alberta on May the 13th. But as Angela Stewart reports now, thanks to a weekend fundraising event and a GoFundMe page, staff are hoping to raise enough money to rebuild the mansion.
Saturday afternoon shenanigans saw many from around the community take part in a fundraising event at the Creepy Hollow.
We've got so much going on, and it's going to be so fun to be here and support the Rhymers.
The weekend event included live bands, an auction, lots of food, a kids zone, and even a yard sale.
We've got lots of things that are here that we've had that we no longer need, and we want to get the funds for the haunted house. There's no words to describe how overwhelmed with happiness and love that they're feeling right now.
Playing a vital role in getting this event off the ground, many staff members quickly sprang into action after learning the news of the fire.
Probably 2 days after the fire happened, I started phoning, hey, do you want to donate? We're going to do something. I don't know when, but we're going to do something. It happened right away. We knew we had to rebuild.
It means a lot to be able to help and just kind of build it back. Like, my daughter came through this haunted house with me last year and has been asking about it all winter long, so sooner we can get it back up and running, the better.
The family and staff are still coming to grips with the loss of the haunted mansion more than a month ago, and the cause of the blaze continues to remain a mystery.
No investigator came out, so we still have no idea. The burn site, it was a 3-story house, and it was down to a pile of ash. We all have our guesses, but that's just it. It's just a guess. A GoFundMe page is still up for people to donate, and the goal is to raise $10,000 for the building costs. It's just really nice to see how many people want to donate for us, and it's really overwhelming to see everyone doing this for us. For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
Alberta municipalities are meeting with local government representatives in Medicine Hat on Tuesday to discuss a few topics, including the province's desire to create a provincial police force and to talk more about the state of Alberta's emergency medical services system. The event will take place at the Esplanade Arts and Heritage Centre from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. On their website, Alberta municipalities say they now serve and represent 275 of our province's 334 municipalities. They work with government leaders to find solutions to economic, environment, and social issues. A heat wave that hit much of Manitoba this weekend has shattered records, including one in Winnipeg dating back to 1888. The mercury soared to 37 degrees on Sunday, smashing the previous record of 33.3 degrees. Things got so hot that organizers of the Manitoba Marathon shut down the event partway through. Several other communities set new records as well, including Steinbach, Winkler, Altona, and Emerson. Well, as for our region, Environment Canada issued a rainfall warning, but how long will the moisture last? We'll answer that question with a complete look at the weather picture in just a moment. We had a rainfall warning in southwestern Alberta today, up to 40 millimeters of rain, plus some pretty strong gusty winds as well. Jeanette Rocher is in now with a complete look at the forecast. Jeanette, how long will the rain last for our region here?
Just into this evening, Hal, and then starting Tuesday, we should be seeing more summer-like conditions. So we could still be seeing that risk of a thunderstorm this evening. The clouds should clear up by midnight, though, and then making way for a beautiful start to summer. So Tuesday, by the way, the first official day of summer, 22 degrees the high. It's going to come in with sunshine. Sunshine's going to last throughout most of the week. 26 the high on Wednesday, 23 on Thursday. Mainly cloudy conditions on Friday with a high of 15 degrees. And then a lovely weekend ahead of us. Saturday, high 21. And 24 on a Sunday with mainly sunny skies. So that'll be our first official weekend of summer. Now the average high for this time of year, 23 degrees, average low 9. On this day back in 1988, we had our hottest day, which was 34, and our chilliest was in 1996, and it was only 1 degree. Sun rose this morning at 5:23 a.m. and our sunset this evening at 9:43 p.m., giving us exactly 16 hours and 20 minutes of daylight. So we're getting so close to that longest day of the year, which is tomorrow, Tuesday. On the coast tomorrow, we're looking at partly cloudy skies, 19 the high, 20 the high in Vancouver under a mix of sun and cloud there, 23 the high in Edmonton, 21 in Calgary. Both of those Alberta cities looking at waking up to sunshine, clouds rolling in, 30% chance of showers later on the day, and then a risk of a thunderstorm. So a little bit of everything tomorrow there. In the rest of the prairies, a risk of thunderstorm in both Regina and Saskatoon. 19 the high in Regina, 21 the high expected tomorrow in Saskatoon, and 23 in Winnipeg. Winnipeg also expecting some showers tomorrow as well. A heat warning is in effect for Toronto over the next couple of days, looking at a high of 29. It's going to feel more like 35 though with that humidex, sunshiny skies as well. 21 in both Montreal and Ottawa tomorrow, with chance of showers. Over on the East Coast, Fredericton, beautiful sunshiny day, 20 degrees the high. Halifax looking at a high of 17. Going to feel cooler along the coast though. Same thing for Charlottetown, 18, but cooler along the coast. Both of those cities looking at showers. Sunshine in St. John's tomorrow, 16 degrees the high. They could actually expect a bit of drizzle in the morning as well. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Industry experts say companies will likely boost employee pay this year as a result of the rising cost of living and very competitive job market. Stats Canada reports wage gains for permanent workers reached 4.5% in May. Economists say elevated demand for workers is bumping up against limited supply, and companies will need to do what they can to compete in an extremely competitive environment. Major banks are some of the companies announcing increases to employee pay in recent months. CN Rail says it's gone the extra mile to meet the demands of its signal and electrical workers. Around 750 members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers went on strike Saturday morning, claiming the railway's concessions do not go far enough. CN's chief operating officers say they're offering a 10% wage hike over 3 years, along with better schedules, ensuring 2 consecutive days off, terms the union calls very misleading. Loblaw Companies is moving quickly to eliminate single-use plastic shopping bags in its stores. Under new rules announced by Ottawa, the sale of bags is being banned by the end of next year. But the parent company of Loblaws and Shoppers Drug Mart says it plans to eliminate the use of plastic bags by the end of the first quarter next year. That includes use at its corporate offices, franchise grocery stores, and pharmacies. Loblaw says the adoption of a plastic bag fee has led to a 70% decline in the use of plastic bags in its stores, and customers have already rallied around reusable bags. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 253 points on the day to finish at 19,183. The Dow was down 38 points to 29,888. The S&P 500 was up 8 points to 3674, and the Nasdaq was up 152 on the day to 10,798. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 71 cents to 110.27 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 25 cents to 6.69 US. Gold was even on the day at 1838.74 US an ounce, and silver was down 18 cents to 21.50 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $14.64 per bushel, barley's at $9.91, canola's at $23.29, and corn is at $12.45 per bushel. Live cattle June contract were up 28 cents to 138.03. Feeder cattle August contract were up $1.65 to 172.95. And lean hogs July contract is up $1.43 to $111. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 77.04 US. Recapping one of our top stories, the federal government's easing of travel restrictions took effect on Monday. Passengers no longer need to be fully vaccinated to board a plane or train in Canada, but masks still need to be worn, including at the airport. Officials say when it comes to re-entering Canada, the ArriveCAN mobile app must still be used, and unvaccinated travelers must show proof of a negative COVID-19 test prior to arrival. The devastating war in Ukraine has not only claimed thousands of lives, but has severely impacted the global food supply chain. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have details shortly. But first, here's a look at some of the special events taking place right here in southwestern Alberta.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Lethbridge Dragon Boat Festival is celebrating 20 years. Presented by ATB Financial, this event brings dragon boaters from across Western Canada together for a weekend of fun competition on the water, as well as live entertainment, a fun kids zone, and delicious food and refreshments. Come out and cheer on your favorite boat. June 24th to the 26th at Henderson Lake Park. For more information, visit lethbridgedragonboatfest.ca. Lethbridge Sport Council's Outdoor Roving Gyms program is taking place Tuesdays behind Nicholas Sharon Arena and Thursdays alternating between Henderson Lake Park and Legacy Park from 10 to 11 a.m. This program is for kids ages 5 and under and their caregivers. Come and enjoy an hour of fun and get active. Registration is required and space is limited. For details and to register, visit lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/rovinggyms. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
There are more reports that the war in Ukraine is causing some global food shortages. Ports in the Black Sea are blocked, Ukraine's grain silos are full, and fields have been destroyed during the war with Russia. To discuss this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, Ukraine's agriculture minister says around 25% of his country's arable land has been destroyed. How will that really impact the global food supply chain?
Yeah, well, there have been reverberations, and that's the point here. Obviously, we're facing, economic hardship, inflation all throughout the globe, caused by this war and caused by many other factors, including coming out of a pandemic and other political policies that have not worked, particularly in the West. But we did an article at the Foreign Desk really connecting the dots on how the war in Ukraine has directly affected food supplies, shortages, what countries are getting their supplies from Ukraine, and how this ongoing war, this lack of confidence in there being an end to the war, is really contributing to the markets and food supplies and the cost of basic supplies all throughout the world, and not to mention obviously gas prices and that connection. But obviously the war in Ukraine has taken a toll. We here in the United States, I think half the country or maybe more at this point are always rolling their eyes when President Biden and his administration try to pinpoint or peg the difficulties we're having on the war in Ukraine, because it's just a cop-out, because there's many more reasons why we are having this economic hardship. But there are obviously there's some factual truth to why the invasion of Ukraine is contributing to this very, very awful world crisis.
Yeah, it's surprising. I was reading some of the recent statistics about how much grain Ukraine supplies to the world food market. It's incredible. Lisa, American military officials are alarmed as Russia has launched airstrikes against a U.S.-led coalition. It was a garrison used by U.S. troops to train Syrian fighters near Syria's southern border with Jordan. Do you think this may potentially bring the United States into the war?
Well, it won't directly bring them into a full-fledged war. I don't think it's going to go that far, but it's exactly what we've been seeing in that region, and particularly when Russia is concerned. This is a proxy war. It's hitting the United States and getting them back for the sanctions that we have placed on Russia for their invasion of Ukraine, and saying, look, it's not like we can't fight you or we can't go after your assets if you're not involved in the war. We can and we will. Now, remember, we entrusted Russia with what was going on in Syria under the Obama administration, when President Obama said the red line here is if the Syrians use chemical weapons. And then it turned out that they in fact did use chemical weapons, and Russia stepped in and said, listen, Barack, we've got this. Let us handle it, and we're going to punish the Syrians if we see that they use chemical weapons, and we'll take care of it. Well, that is coming back to bite us, as we see, because we entrusted them, we gave them full control, and obviously Russia has very much made its presence known in Syria, and they will use that to their advantage. Again, they have U.S. assets there, and they're able to go after us in a way that delivers the message right to Washington, D.C. without getting the United States boots on the ground in Ukraine or getting them involved in any other way. So, the foreign policy is always a full circle, and here it comes round and round. We are really paying for the weak foreign policy that we had under President Obama, and obviously the Biden administration being a continuation of that in many, many ways, particularly where Syria is involved, and now the handling of Ukraine and Russia, which is it's incredibly difficult. So, we don't really know how to handle the Ukraine-Russia situation other than praying that Putin takes this off ramp and kind of does his cease and desist on his own at some point. And we don't know when that point will be.
Yeah, Lisa, has there been any more discussion on if Ukrainian President Zelensky and Russian President Putin will actually sit down and bring an end to this war once and for all?
Yeah, well, Zelensky's on board, and so are Western allies of Zelensky. They would love for Putin to sit down and have this conversation to, again, give some sort of end to this, give up some concessions, surrender, compromise, whatever it takes to put an end to this. But it seems like Putin, although we do not know the exact trajectory he is taking, he's become more rogue in recent weeks and days. And for that reason, we wonder if he just thinks, you know what, I'm closer to the victory line than I was before. I don't know if I'm going to want to sit down and compromise just yet. And the numbers are not looking good. They're not in Ukraine's favor, even though the United States just pledged another $1 billion in aid. We're sending them more weapons. That's probably just more for the economy and business of selling military equipment than anything else, because it's a drop in the bucket when you look at the numbers, when you look at the percentage of territory that is in Russian control and the way that they're headed. They're not yet there to claim a full victory, but they don't want to back down either. And that's really the conundrum that we're stuck in here. How will this end? What kind of ending could it have? And will it escalate to a point where we wish that we intervened in a more conclusive way?
Israeli and U.S. intelligence officials are keeping a close eye on Iran's construction of a new underground nuclear facility. Now, this massive facility can allegedly withstand bunker-busting bombs and cyber attacks.
Yes, very interesting how this is all going with the Iran regime. The United States still hopes that they will get an Iran nuclear deal, a new Iran nuclear deal, after President Trump withdrew from the previous one in 2018, and President Obama first got us into the first Iran nuclear deal in 2015. So the Biden administration is hoping to get a second version of the 2015 deal. But the Iran regime is flexing its muscles at the nuclear negotiation table. They have doubled down on the enrichment of uranium. They have taken down 27 or more cameras. The IAEA, which is the Atomic Energy Committee from the UN, they're the watchdog committee that's supposed to be really responsible for the surveillance of Iran's weapons programs and facilities. And they have denied access. So it doesn't look good at this point. So the Israelis have to do their own homework. They have to be prepared. And day after day, we get more reports that Iran is marching forward with beefing up its assets, beefing up its weapons program. And let me tell you, this is not for peaceful purposes the way that the Iranian regime once claimed it was. They're definitely moving into the rogue direction. And at this point, they don't have any fear of being open about it or boasting about it to the Biden administration. So I don't know how this is going to end up, but it's going to be very, very difficult to walk them back from where they are headed in terms of their weapons program.
Now, Israel's defense minister says his country is preparing offensive options against Iran in case they're needed. Lisa, tensions between Israel and Iran have intensified in recent weeks following the assassination of a top Iranian officer in Tehran last month.
You're right. So, regardless of what happens at the nuclear negotiation table, regardless of who is president in the United States and who's in the White House, the Israelis have to do their homework because they are within arm's reach of the Iran regime. And Iran has not been shy about threatening to take Israel off the map. And for that reason, the Israelis have gone after pinpointed and very, very targeted attacks against Iran's assets. So they have been hitting them in Syria quietly and very targetedly so that there are not no civilian casualties. They're going after their assets. And more recently, there were two nuclear leaders, top heads of their nuclear program. One was a member of the IRGC, which is the Revolutionary Guard. Those are also believed to be Israeli hits on Iran's soil. So obviously they are looking to avenge these murders. They want to get back at Israel. They are, again, chest thumping and going on with their nuclear program. And Israel says, we cannot afford to sit here right in your backyard and allow you to develop a weapon that you say has our name on it. So we will do what it takes in the most quiet and peaceful way and targeted way to minimize the threat that is pointed against us.
Iran's security forces say they're really clamping down on teachers' protests across the country. Thousands of educators, Lisa, rallied over the weekend against the Islamic government, demanding higher wages, human rights, and the release of their imprisoned colleagues suffering in a number of state-run prisons.
Right. And where are the teachers' unions? Where are the liberals of the world who are the so-called champions of human rights who have not spoken out about this, or the teachers that are being arrested on the streets of Iran this past weekend, hundreds rounded up for peaceful protesting. And again, they're only asking for their basic rights, their pensions, their human rights. They're asking for those who have been imprisoned to be released. This week actually marks the 13th anniversary of the Green Revolution in Iran. Those were the protests in 2009, where many teachers and many others came out and protested for human rights and for a toppling of the current regime, only to fall on deaf ears for the West. They did not get the support they wanted under the Obama presidency. And so they continue to come out onto the streets. This is a very important group of protesters because, again, teachers, they make minimum wage. They are treated like garbage, and they are saying, we're only asking for our basic rights. We're asking not to be imprisoned. We're asking for our human rights. We're asking for our pensions and basic things that teachers should receive as they are educating young people. This is also interesting, as we have had weeks of protests in Iran, not just focused on teachers, but throughout the country, all people of all walks of life coming out onto the streets and saying death to the supreme leader, death to the president, President Raisi, and again, not getting the support from the West that they would like. They know, and I've interviewed many Iranians during this time of protest who say, we just want support from the West. Verbal support is enough. We're not asking for weapons. We're not asking for money. All we want is a statement of support from the White House, and they have still not received that.
China has apparently cornered the market on pharmaceutical ingredients. Lisa, many people feel this may jeopardize national security in both the United States and Canada. How so?
Absolutely. This is awful, right? When you look at the monopoly that China has over so many items, and okay, well, basic goods, we can say that we're getting a discount and goods are produced in a much cheaper fashion and easier fashion in China, which is why a lot of production went over to China and really boosted their economy there. But now when you have sensitive equipment, when you have military equipment, you have cyber equipment and pharmaceutical equipment being made by the Chinese. I mean, how can we trust quality control? How could we trust anything when we are giving them literally this leverage over us here in the West to be the producers of these products? And you know what always happens here in the West is that we find out much later on. So there are recalls on very sensitive items. There are lawsuits, there are class action lawsuits. And the root of the issue is let's not let the Chinese produce these sensitive products to begin with, rather than having recalls later on. And in terms of national security, in terms of the economy, in terms of all that we have entrusted China with, they are our enemy, and yet we allow them to have this leverage over us and have this control and monopoly over these very, very important and sensitive products.
Now, still with China, their Navy reportedly launched Asia's largest aircraft carrier. The country's third carrier, called Fujian, is pretty big too, displacing around 80,000 metric tons of water. By comparison, the USS Ronald Reagan and USS Abraham Lincoln carriers that displace around 100,000 metric tons of water. China also says its Navy possesses 355 ships, and Lisa is slated to own 460 by the year 2030. How significant is this?
Extremely significant, extremely significant. We have had reports lately that say, hello, they're on our heels. And this only speaks to that and proves that they are. The United States, the West in general, we're not looking in the rearview mirror, and the Chinese are approaching. And they are approaching because that's their will and that's their agenda. So while we are not focused on on growth in many sectors, particularly military, the Chinese are extremely fixated on growing their might, and not only growing their might, but really boasting about it. They are very much interested in becoming a world power, showing that they're a world power, putting this growth and progress on display the way that they did with this carrier, and being able to say, we're playing with the big boys now. Not only are we playing with the big boys, we're almost at the level of competing with the United States. And that it's mind-boggling when you think about it. So unless we wake up to this threat, we have to be ready to say that the Chinese are going to surpass us in the next 10, 20 years, as you stated. And that's the reality of it, because they have the agenda to do so. They have the money to do so. And with their copycat technology, with their ability to seize and copy, who knows what they're capable of doing. And in fact, that's their goal, to surpass the United States and the West.
Foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us today from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
We are at the Lethbridge Fish and Game Shooting Sports Facility. I am joined by Alan Friesen, who is the past president of Lethbridge Fish and Game and a firearms instructor. Right, Alan?
Correct.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Bridge City News. Actually, you're hosting us, so
thank
you for having us here. Let's talk about what Bill C-21 actually is.
So I guess the components that I understand it to be of what I know, because it kind of reveals as we go with the changes. As an example, there's not supposed to be a registry, but there is a registry now, right? So there was a registry was put in place, then discontinued a number of years ago. Now on an unofficial basis, they've introduced a registry. So people like Marksman Guns and Sports, where they have a store, now they have to record every transaction, the owner, and they have to maintain these records for 20 years. That's a registry. So that's one thing that's been slid in that, oh, we're getting this back. Two is that these firearms that now have been said, oh, these are too scary, Canadians can't own them, those ones that are going to be prohibited, well, that equipment then will be apparently bought back, which is different than what they've done in the past. In the past, they kind of have a grandfathered kind of a status, and then the person who's grandfathered keeps the equipment until they die, and then they destroy it, is basically the idea. Okay. So with this one here, it's different. They're going to come back and say, oh, you know, you can't use this until we come back and buy it from you, and when they buy it, it's going to be, you know, it doesn't matter. As a property owner who legally bought a piece of property in Canada, they're going to tell me what they're going to accept, what I'm going to accept for it, and that's going to be the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the big chunks to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So do you think that Bill C-21 will actually stop current handgun owners from owning handguns in the future?
No, well, for currents, no. My understanding is they will be able to retain those guns until they die, but everybody else go forward would not. Which then like we have an amazing youth shooting program here, safe shooting department, and we have youth that are part of that, and we got 30 kids that are starting tonight in that program, right? And it is a really amazing opportunity to teach responsibility to children, to show them that their action they take has a consequence. With handguns, it happens like right away, and so we want to make that real clear that what they're using, that they have to respect it, use it safely, or they cannot participate. Yeah. So we have kids that are amazingly responsible, amazingly good citizens that have come out of that program. They're great.
So, Alan, do you think that we're now going to be seeing a rush across Canada of people buying handguns before this bill passes?
Yes. Every time the federal government announces firearm safety laws, my student list goes up, swells up, and every time people are in a flurry to buy equipment that might go away in the future, right, or might be restricted or controlled. Some of that is bizarre. When we're talking about the restricted firearms, the ones that are going to be restricted now, or prohibited, I should say. One, in my case, I have one that I bought 25 years ago, a non-restricted firearm, can use it, shoot a gopher or
shoot a gopher.
Well, you know, there are problems at the farm, so, or shoot a coyote if that's killing our cats or whatever, and then you clean it, put it back in the safe, and it's good. You know, use it for another year, right? So now I am a criminal now if I take that out of the safe. Well, that's craziness.
This, of course, is a really emotional time with all recent mass shootings in the U.S.
Yes.
So a lot of people do want to see governments do something to stop that gun violence. So do you think that banning guns will have a tangible effect on this?
No, unfortunately it will not. It's and the terrible tragedy, I cannot imagine the pain those parents in Texas are going through to have their little ones killed and it's heartbreaking. Some of them people will never recover from that kind of trauma, right? So it's horrible. But firearms, violence, like all violence, is just a symptom, right? We got to get at the cause. What is the cause? How does an 18-year-old kid get to the point where he is so disconnected and so full of hate that he's going to kill all these little innocent children, right? How does that happen? So what supports were missing to get that kid to a point where he could be helped and he would never got to that stage, right? So, and I'm not blaming, and Grandma seems like she did her best to be a loving parent, but you know what, the kid was apparently, really abused and teased and that kind of thing, and not unlike, remember the tragedy in Tabor, 15 years ago? Mm-hmm. Same thing, a little kid that was, picked on and abused and told he's a worthless piece of shit every day, and then all of a sudden what happens, right? Violence is the problem. How do we address the violence? Because that's the issue, right? And I think we have to draw a distinction between self-violence and violence against others. Do you think that makes sense, that distinction? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because violence against self, our laws don't seem to want to be involved with that if a Canadian no longer wants to be here, that they have the right to no longer be here, and then they can even get the medically assisted dying if they want. So self against harm is entirely different. So the whole thing that we're addressing is self against others. So the
harm against self, harm against self. Yeah.
Harm against others. Thank you. Harm against others. So that's the issue we're addressing. As it relates to firearms, that's a very, very small part of the problem. 80% of the firearm deaths in Canada are suicide. And then of the 5% that are accidents, I'm sure many of those are actually suicides as well. So we're talking a very small chunk of 1,200 Canadians, according to the Firearm Safety Course, 1,200 Canadians who die every year, at least 80% are self-harm. So
it's so sad.
It is.
Do you think it's fair to say that a bill like this, new gun laws won't necessarily change the minds of hardened criminals or gang members?
No.
To somehow give up gun violence?
The laws that come into place, if we're following, if the responsible firearm owners are already following all the laws, right, and all the laws already will not allow, are so stringent already. Just as a good example, we keep hearing this as assault-style rifles, right? That's what you keep hearing. Okay, so what is an assault-style rifle? According to Google, if you look it up, it's a fully automatic firearm that is used in military pursuits, where you're going to use it to kill people. That's what an assault rifle is. We don't have assault rifles in Canada. They've been banned in Canada since 1978. So we don't have them. They're banned. There is no fully automatic firearms. Well, pardon me, there's a couple old guys that probably have them, and they got them in their safe because they're never going to leave, and when they die, they're going to be chopped up and destroyed. So we don't have assault rifles in Canada, period.
Okay. Any thoughts on where the government could better spend our money to reduce gun violence?
I love that you asked that question. That is a beautiful question. But I'm going to change it up a little bit, okay? I think that reducing violence is important, but I don't think it's just gun violence, because that's a really, really small part of the puzzle. Here's what I think is something we could make huge gains for people. Every day, every night in Canada, there's 3,500 women who are escaping domestic violence in their home, kiddies on their shoulders or on their hips, trying to get out of harm's way every night. And about 300 more women and their kiddos don't find shelter because there's not enough room. Okay, that is where we could make a huge, huge difference in people's lives. Instead of looking at a problem where it's mostly to do with self-harm, let's look at harm to others, very vulnerable people, and give them supports and protection.
Wow, okay. Do you think that it's too easy for someone to get a gun license in Canada? Do you think that our gun laws are too lax?
No, they are. I know we look at the South and we say, oh, we got this big problem because the South has a big problem. Our numbers are entirely different. We have 1,200 deaths in Canada from firearms in a year, right? 80% of those are suicide. In the United States, it's 35,000, something like that. Instead of 1,200, it's 35,000. It's a whole different context, right? And then also there's the firearm controls there. You could buy a gun anywhere, any weekend, you can go to a swap meet and buy a gun in the United States, right? They don't even ask for your piece of ID, right? Here, you have to take a course. You have to take 2 courses, Canadian Firearm Safety Course or Canadian Firearm Restricted Safety Course, in order that you can apply for a license. When you apply for license, you're going to answer questions about your mental health, your financial health, your marital health, or your relationship health, those kind of things. You're going to provide references that are going to check you over. They're going to do a police check. And firearm owners in Canada are the most vetted people in our whole country, because every day, if I'm a firearm owner, which I am, they'd run a police check on me every day on every Canadian who has a firearm license. So we are kept to a higher standard. They don't check you, they check me every day. And if there's something there's an issue that maybe I've gone to violence, or then I get approached, and gee, we're going to take them firearms, right? Yeah. And I don't have any problem with that. That's being prudent, but it's rarely. I've been teaching this course for 35 years. I can't think of one time where I had a student say, ooh, that guy shouldn't have a gun. I mean, the people who come here are just people who want to engage in a very safe, exciting, dynamic sport that can be a lifetime sport and is the safest sport in the world. Like, you do the stats on the Olympics, like of shooting sports worldwide. Shooting is the safest sport.
So how do we keep guns from getting into the hands of the wrong people?
Well, one, be very, very harsh on the criminals, right? Like, that's not happening right now. It's kind of, you catch them and they get a slap in the hand and they go out. No. Firearm laws, firearm infractions, violence of any sort should be extremely harshly dealt with. We got to stop it. Like, that's the problem. Violence leads to trauma for people, right? And then that trauma leads to lives that are really hard for their whole life unless they deal with the trauma they've experienced, and often they experience as a child.
You had kind of alluded to the youth shooting program that you have here. So let's talk about the many individuals and families with kids who come out to the shooting gallery here. Is it a safe sport in your opinion?
Let me tell you about a time when I was wrong. I've been wrong a few times. Rick Blakely was saying range 3 over here, we're going to make it into a 22 range only. They're quiet, very, very little recoil, right? And I thought, that's crazy. What is he doing? But then every night, every weekend, I see grandma there with his grandchild, and I see grandma and the aunties shooting, and it's just a beautiful family place. You come out, you buy a box of ammo for, you know, whatever this is, $3, and you got an afternoon of fun, right, with your grandkids. It's a beautiful place. So yeah, very, very family-oriented activity that way. And with the youth program, oh man, we got some kids that are, there's one kid. He was so small, he was 12. I was really worried about him, but he was really, really dedicated to muzzle control and trigger control. He was very, very focused on it. But he had to put 2 fingers on the trigger to press it when he was so small initially.
Sure, of course.
But now he's like this tall and, you know, like just an amazing gun handler. If anything happened, I would not be at all worried that he would be safe, whatever happened. So.
Okay, so Ellen, what are the benefits of kids learning to shoot?
Well, the best thing I can share for you is that there's a pretty, in all of our life, we make decisions, and those decisions result in consequences, and that, you know, here's what happens because of it, right? With shooting, that is like down to a millisecond, right? I take this action, I press this trigger, this bullet leaves this muzzle, it hits there. So it happens right now. So in a similar way to my life, I have control. If I have control what happens here, I'm going to control what happens down there. In my life, I can make adjustments. With a firearm, I can't. Once the trigger is pressed, the bullet's going where it's going to go. But that tie to this action results in this consequence, and then relate that to this applies to your life as well, right? If you do these things, here's what's going to happen.
So life lessons then.
I think so. I think so.
Okay, so what would you say to a parent who says, hey, is this potentially going to make my child like violence or become more violent?
It will 100% help your child to become a more responsible human being, period, full stop. There's nobody that we get out here and they say, ooh, that kid came from our program and now, you know, we got to go get him arrested because he's lost it, right? That doesn't happen, right? So
Alan, I know that we would love to hear about the facility here. It's large, it's way bigger than I expected. This is my first time here, so tell me about it.
This is an amazing facility, and we're very, very thankful for our relationship with the City of Lethbridge, Mayor, Council, and the administration. They've been very supportive. We recently had a huge enhancement to this facility. It's $1.7 million with city funds, with fish and game funds, and with a commitment to support our youth program going on. Every year we spend about $30,000 supporting youth programs. So that's free ammunition, free instruction, free range time, free targets. So, and all of the people who do that are all volunteers. So we have people who volunteer to make that happen. So an amazing world-class facility right here, the City of Lethbridge right there. How can we operate a range when the City of Lethbridge is right there? Because this is a total containment facility. With these last enhancements, this is like the world-class, the best standard you can get in terms of a projectile management. That's really what a range is, a projectile management system. And we have the best system that exists right here.
Okay, and you were saying that even the Lethbridge Police Service comes here to do their practicing.
They do. Lethbridge Police, RCMP, CBSA, we have them and support them. We're very, very big fans of law enforcement and working with law enforcement. We've had situations where law enforcement have came to us and asked us about an individual. Is this, you know, should we be worried? That kind of a thing. And what we will often do is just say, here's our cameras, here's our feed. You know, you give it a look, right? We want to be everybody's safe. We're on the same side with anti-gun Sally that doesn't want anybody to own a gun. She don't want anybody to gun because she wants to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want everybody to be safe. Firearms by themselves are not dangerous. It's a piece of equipment. We can all use them safely if we choose to.
Right.
Or not use them at all if you don't want them. That's okay.
You actually made a really good point earlier about somebody in a car.
Yes.
Because that also could be considered an assault of weapons. So
yeah. It's, again, violence of all forms is just a symptom, right? The cause, what is the cause? That's what we have to address, right? There's water running and there's people who drown in the water. We don't say we're going to ban the river. We say we're going to teach people how to swim, and we're not going to throw kids in the river who can't swim, right? Who are not old enough to swim, right? That's what we're going to do. So in a life way, anything could be used as a weapon. And if you had, you know, my 2010 Dodge truck that I ran through people and killed people, it'd be a horrible, terrible event, of course. But I'm not expecting the government of Canada is going to, you know, ban 20-ton Dodge trucks forever. Like, it's not. It's a piece of equipment. My action was the problem, not the piece of equipment, right? And it's the same if I, you know, with violence, whether it's a knife or a fist or a foot or a baseball bat or a golf club, it's all just, it's using an appliance to do violence to people, right? That's what it is.
Okay, so on the same vein of safety,
yes,
maybe teach us some safety tricks, I guess. If I was a brand new client here,
yes,
what would you teach me?
Okay, by the time you leave here today, there's 2 things you're going to tell me before you go. Every time you pick up a gun, you're going to pick it, you're going to point in the safest direction, and you're going to keep your finger off the damn trigger. Those 2 things. You're going to do those consistently before you leave here. There's actually, what is there, 7 steps to it, but really the 2 are choose that have the safest muzzle direction at all times, and your finger is only on the trigger when your sights are aligned on the target. The rest of the time, your finger's off the trigger. So those 2 things. The whole thing is actually, according to the Canadian firearms course, assume it's loaded, control the muzzle, keep your finger off the trigger and not the trigger guard, see that it's safe by proving it's safe. Keep it pointed in a safe direction, remove the ammunition, observe the chamber, verify the feeding path, examine the bore. So those are the actual steps. But the 2, if people leave and they keep the muzzle in a safe direction, they keep the finger off the trigger, I say hallelujah, I did my job.
Well, Alan, thanks so much for having us out today. I know I learned a lot for sure.
Hey, I appreciate you coming. Thanks for coming to our amazing facility and your interest in firearm safety. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That is Alan Friesen, the past president of the Lethbridge Fish and Game and the firearms instructor here at Lethbridge Fish and Game Shooting and Sports Facility. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.